Walk at the American Cemetery. On the third day, June 24, 1968, that was St. John the Baptist Day, Arao ni San Juan. I was designated to accompany Bábá in his morning walk at the American Cemetery. On our way, a thought came to my mind that some naughty guys might come to the car and splash water on my guests. The car's windows were open, so I tried to close them. Then a very strong feeling came to my mind that no one could harm us. True to what I thought, nobody disturbed us. We then reached the American Cemetery. We selected a big tree with a big shade. We spread the mat under the tree and sat down on it. I heard a few cicadas and crickets making a few sounds initially. The sound became louder and louder. Bábá was so quiet, just sitting still with his magnetic smile. The sound got really loud, as if the whole tree was full of cicadas and crickets, making sound in unison. I thought the cicadas and crickets were welcoming Bábá. It felt as if a rope was hanging directly about the center of my head, with a thick group of crickets clustered on the rope and making a very sweet sound altogether. I could not understand what was happening. Every now and then Bábá would say something, but my mind was focused on the sounds of the crickets. After a while, we stood up and walked towards the car from home. Bábá's trip to Baguio. The fifth day of Bábá's visit was scheduled for him to make a trip to Baguio, together with a group of Margis. I took a taxi to Kunana's place, the meeting point. I thought I was on time, but to my dismay, when I reached the place, everyone was gone already. I felt hopeless, as I had no way of catching up with them up on the plane. A lady came along and inquired if everyone had gone to Baguio. I answered in the affirmative and added, I was supposed to be with them on this trip. The lady said she would like to see Bábá off, and when she asked if I would like to ride with her to the airport, I accepted her invitation with much joy. When we reached the airport, I was so happy to see that they were still there. I saw Bábá smiling happily, and his eyes were focused on me. After a few minutes, we moved towards the plane. When we were seated, I found my seat to be just one passenger away from Bábá's. The plane touched down in Baguio, domestic airport, at about 11 o'clock in the morning. We disembarked and walked towards the vehicles that were to make us to our accommodation. I saw two Margis, Leonard Jacob and Francis de Vera, now a doctor of medicine, lying down on the grass, flat on their stomach. Bábá walked towards them and just stood there for a moment. After about a minute, the two boys rose up and walked with us to the vehicles. Later on, these two boys claimed that Bábá told them, "Rise, my sons, rise." I thought those two boys were just making up things and were overacting, as I was beside Bábá, and to me, he never uttered a single word. Later on, something similar happened to me that made me believe them. That similar incident happened at the Manila International Airport. When Bábá was about to leave Manila for India, as Bábá started walking towards the immigration area, all of the Margis started crying. I was crying too. Then I had a very strong urge to hold his feet, since I was very far from him, and we were separated by several Margis between us. I did not think I had a chance to do that. As I watched him walking away from me, I asked myself, how could I hold his feet when he is so far away and I am nothing? I consider myself not important enough to be given attention and be given such privilege. All of a sudden, he changed his direction. He started walking towards where I was. Upon reaching my place, he stopped in front of me and gave me a very beautiful, divine smile. I was frozen stiff. I did not know what to do. Being very shy by nature, I could not make any move to hold his feet. when suddenly a very strong force pulled me down to his feet. I lost my consciousness. Then I heard a very faint voice, which became stronger and stronger, saying to me, "Rise, my son, rise." I regained my consciousness and found myself crouched down, holding his feet. I got up and he did Namaskara. I did Namaskara and he went away. I had no appetite for food the next 2 weeks after. You Are Never Alone by Carlos M. Ripoll. A few days before the arrival of our beloved Master Ananda Murtiji, Supreme Spiritual Leader of the Ananda Marga organization, I had an urge to meet Babaji personally, but was consciously aware that to meet him before others was preposterous. Yet very, very early on the 20th of June, I woke up with the premonition that I was to meet Babaji face to face upon his arrival in the Philippines. But I knew not how. On the night of the Master's arrival on the plane, with his 2 companions, a big congregation packed the corridor and the VIP room of the Manila International Airport to receive the Master and his entourage. Upon his arrival, I found myself at the middle of the VIP room, close to the stairway. When I suddenly turned around towards the stairs, I found myself face to face about 3 steps away with a gentle, fascinating personality in white, with hands close to each other as if in prayer, yet smiling. His face and compassionate eyes electrified me. It was most fascinating to me. It seemed that I had seen the Master before, although I knew not where. There I was dumbstruck. I just felt myself kneeling before him, trying to kiss the hem of his robe. Unfortunately, he wore no robe, so I contented myself in touching his feet and slippers. This was the most exciting experience I ever had in my life. Tears flowed from my eyes then, and even now, when I remember this solemn occasion, what followed was a tempo of revolutionary sweet events in my whole system, brought about during the Master's stay in the Philippines. Though I was early for the morning and evening program on Saturday, I arrived late on the Sunday morning ceremony. Since the Master left for his paseo on ride downtown, I felt like doing meditation, like I often did whenever I had time to spare. I invited Bro Aquino to join me at a nook by the garden close to Bro Quinano's house. While we were there, I was not aware that Esestada had been looking for me for a personal contact with the Master. Later at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Esestada and Bros Quinana, Lim and Ramos led the Margis in the distribution of cookies, sandwiches and juice drinks to more than 200 orphans at the Hospicio de San Jose. At 6:30 in the afternoon, our beloved Master Ananda Murtiji gave a talk to the public at the Plaridel Temple. There was complete silence throughout the delivery of the Master's speech. As soon as he finished, he left the place for his paseo downtown. Luckily, I had the opportunity to follow Babaji. When Acharya told me to accompany the Master, I made a 200-yard dash up and down the temple to get my shoes. I made it just in time to sit beside Babaji and Acharya Astana at the back seat of Mr. Leelin's car. On the front seat were Mr. and Mrs. Leelin and Bro Korotan, who I found out later were barefooted throughout the paseo at the Rizal Park. Babaji was very knowledgeable on current events, even prehistoric instances, both in the human as well as in the animal kingdom, which he shared with us, even as we were at the goldfish pond at the Rizal Park. We rode through the streets of Manila, passing through the historic Fort Santiago to Roxas Boulevard, Buendia Avenue, and Highway 54 on our way to Mandaluyong, where Baba was temporarily staying. I believe Babaji and Acharya Astana enjoyed the ride as we talked on temperament, nations and languages. We were back in our homes in no time. The Master was supposed to have as many personal contacts as possible when Monday came, and many brothers were awaiting their turn. The sisters were getting uneasy because they were not having their chance to be with the Master. The master had a lecture and a program in the evening, after which me and bro Anakan hurriedly left to go to Baguio by 10:30 in the evening, catching the midnight BAL bus. We had to make arrangements for Bábá's coming later. We arrived in Baguio at 5:40 in the morning, Tuesday, since it was still early to contact Bro Sharma. We went to the Chinese temple at the Trinidad Valley where we had sadhana, in time to feel the first rays of the sun over our heads. We went back to the Session Road where Bro and Mrs. Sharma were waiting for us. After breakfast and having arranged for 5 jeepneys that may serve as transportation for some members of the master's party arriving by plane, we proceeded to the Baguio airport by noon. Their departure from Manila was past 10 o'clock in the morning, and the master arrived past 1 p.m. The weather was very nice then, but later after lunch of the group at the Bro Sharma's residence and at the Pines Hotel, Baguio's usual afternoon rain started. The proposed ride or outing around the city was scrapped, and this became a propitious coincidence, since the sisters had the opportunity to have personal contact with the master before the brothers had theirs. The sweet moments again with Babaji reminded me of the longing of a child for his mother to come and keep him in embrace. That was the way I felt when I was again beside him. While hearing his words of counsel, I was thankful and kissed his hands and feet for the happy moments granted to me. By midnight, up to past 1:30 in the morning of Wednesday, there was an open forum in Bro Ramos' room with Baba's personal assistant leading, and the meeting ended with the usual community singing. We had a few hours of sleep at the Pines Hotel at Brothers Ramos, Garcia and myself were up by 5 o'clock in the morning for sadhana and asanas, so as to be ready for breakfast by 7 o'clock in the morning at Bro Sharma's place. After bidding au revoir and thanking Mr. and Mrs. Sharma for their wonderful hospitality, we returned to the hotel. I told Dada that I was leaving Baguio early to be in time for the evening program in Manila. Then I was given the privilege to help the master's party to pack their belongings, and after the party left for the airport, to put away the remains of Babaji's food and return the containers to Bro Sharma. With the slowness of the Dangwa bus and the awful congested traffic in Manila, I arrived in Mandaluyong around 9 o'clock in the evening, in time for the Despedida program for the visitors and the visit to the master at the yoga house in Makati, Rizal. At Bro Kunana's home with Acharya Ashtana and Dr. Lim, the former mentioned that the study of languages, specifically Sanskrit, in conversational style is one of the tasks in the agenda of the Ananda Marga organization in Mahárliká. We talked on several topics and were later joined by Baba's PA, personal assistant, and Bro Kunanan. Early Thursday morning, on June 21st, Bro Kunana's home was filled with Margi initiates and members for the last lecture of our beloved Master Sri Sri Anandamurtiji. In closing, he said that we, all humanity, are children of God, and even the worst sinner has the right to call on God, his Father, for assistance, forgiveness and blessings. Among the few but beautiful and impressive talks of Babaji, I like to ponder deeply besides his last lecture on his admonition on the different phases of karma, and his very pleasing interpretation of the word God, generator, operator, and disintegrator or destroyer. By 9 o'clock in the morning, the entourage left the premise for the Manila International Airport. Bro Sakrani, who covered the different programs of the master's brief stay, took pictures while we were at the VIP room for some 40 minutes. Some of us in the group were squatting on the floor as we surrounded our beloved Babaji, who sat on the sofa. We sang songs for him. Seemingly, the master was quite moved, just like all of us. After that, the master tenderly gave us all his blessings. stood up and walked towards the stairs, down to the gates leading to the plain. After several minutes, we saw our visitors, accompanied by Dada and brothers Kunanan and Lim, and two others, go up the plank to the plain, waving au revoir. A Week of Bliss by Muralidhara. Baba's first visit at Mahárliká on June 20, 1968, and left June 27, 1968. He stayed at Bro Joaquin Cunana's house. I packed my needed belongings and stayed at Bro Cunana's lawn until Baba left. My wife Rosario Cardenas stayed also in place and voluntarily did all the cooking with Sis Linda Lim, Sis Alicia Parinas, and others. My wife was given the Sanskrit name Sati and Sis Alicia Parinas Parvati. According to Sati and Parvati, they used to serve Baba food in the room. Baba used to go outside for a stroll, field walk, once in the morning and in the evening. Once he went to the Rysal Park, Luneta Park, with Lilananda and Girisha and some others. After some rounds, some of us felt Baba's motions that seemed to signify the end of the field walk, as if he intended to go back to Bro Nana's residence. Bro Lilanandaji offered to search for the driver and the car. He was about to cross the road when everyone noticed that the car was already there. During the field walk, Baba asked the group, as they were about to open their umbrellas, if they objected to his plan to let it rain. Another day, Baba went to the American cemetery. We were less than 30. While treading the pavement leading to the big banyan trees, one Margi was walking at the tail end. Baba intentionally slowed down until he had the same pace with him, and somehow, without asking what the Margi's thoughts were, Baba explained to the Margi that Baba was wearing eyeglasses because of necessity. The Margi was quite amazed at the time. He was in much doubt of Baba being a true master, because he thought, if Baba truly was, why would he still be wearing eyeglasses? Upon that brief exchange between the Guru and the Margi, the latter immediately took his place among the others and kept his stride with the same pace. We made our way to the banyan trees and heard the crickets chirping in a happy mood. Baba said that these crickets were singing loud out of happiness because we were passing by. I thought that even insects noticeably felt happy in the presence of the master. We all seated ourselves on the circular bench around the big banyan tree. Baba looked around and pointed at Bro Nonong Pasis, the husband of Dr. Lilia Abiog Pasis. Without hesitation, Baba told Nonong that he was suffering with incurable liver cancer, even with the medicines in his pocket. Nonong's, however, Baba said that if Bro Pasis intended to help humanity, Baba would cure him. While Bro Pasis was nodding his head, his former violet skin turned to pinkish miraculously. Dr. Lilia Abiog Pasis, a doctor of medicine, suddenly burst into tears, and explained later that it was because Nonong was gravely afflicted with his disease and was already rejected for treatment in hospitals. I noticed that even some brothers who were not initiated into the meditation practice were equally given the same chance to meet my Guru. This was his will and grace. A Dharma Mahachakra was to be held at the Plaridel Temple in San Marcelino. Bro Girisha and I constructed a lotus replica as Baba's seat. While waiting for Baba and his entourage, and with the program about to commence, we noticed two cameramen inside the hall who said they were sent by their TV station to cover the event. We explained that this spiritual occasion was not for filming, and we asked them to leave the place. In spite of our strong demands, they stayed until the master and group entered the hall, and they made a coverage of the whole event, or so everybody thought. When the program ended, our group returned to Bro Kunana's home. While all were busy chatting, Bro Perry Lim remembered to call the NBC to ask for the exact airing time of the occasion's coverage. We were all dumbfounded to know that all films had no imprints of any of the event, and the rolls of films were blank. We all knew then that Baba did not will the filming. We were all excitedly preparing to fly for Baguio, where we would be given special darshana from the Guru. Baba commented that he had already seen Baguio. However, since he loves all his sons and daughters, he consented to go there again. Some went there by land, but others flew. My wife, Sati, and I, and some others joined Baba's group in one plane. While on the plane, Baba stood up from his seat and walked on the aisle, and managed to look at each one of the group on the plane. What a blissful flight for all those who checked in with Baba on that same plane. Our disembarkation at Baguio Airport took more than half an hour. We proceeded to the Pines Hotel before we went around Baguio for some sightseeing, then back again to the hotel. After some hours' rest, we again made a quay for a second hotel. After some hours' rest, we again made a key for second PC. For my turn, I had myself ready to kiss Baba's feet. However, he grabbed me to give me another embrace as he confirmed my vows to propagate the philosophy. The Baguio trip ended, and all got ready for home, except for Baba and his entourage, who went straight to MIA purposely for a visit to another country. We felt that a strong attachment developed out of our sincere devotion to our great Father. All of us had joy of tears in our eyes, blissful with our experience from the Guru's first visit, yet feeling sad from the Guru's departure that day of June 27, 1968. The God of human beings, Sri Sri Anandamurti. The yogi says there is hardly any difference between the terms God and bliss. It is just like two names, water and agua, used for the same entity. The yogi says what is God? He is bliss, he is Ananda. And the functional side of the Supreme Father is everything cometh from him and goeth back to that Supreme Entity. And what is that Supreme Entity? It is Ananda. God is the generator, he is the operator, and he is the benevolent destructor. G-O-D. What is God? As operator, he is the controller also. The operator of a machine must have control over the machine. He must be a controller. And this controller is not only an ordinary mechanic, he is a great magician, because he creates everything in his mind. The magician creates so many things in his mind. And the spectators say, oh, he's a great magician. But actually, these spectators are befooled. Their mental attachment goes toward the created objects and not towards the magician. But they should know that those created objects are of temporary nature. The magician is the truth. So this controller is a great magician. He is creating everything within his mind. And for those created beings, the mental world of this magician appears to be a physical one. Suppose you create a candle in your mind and a man in your mind. You know that both the candle and the man are of mental creation, are purely mental, not physical. They are within your mind. But for your mental man, your mental candle is a reality. Similarly, for you, this world is a physical reality. But for that Supreme Magician, everything is transitory. So he is a magician and has control over the entire universe. Now what is God again? The yogi says, he who has got occult powers, all the faculties is God. Unless and until one possesses all the occult powers, how can one control the universe? The occult powers are 8 in number. He who is the owner of all these occult powers is known as Ishvara in Sanskrit. And why is God called Ishvara? He can see and do everything. He can go to any place without the help of any organ. Another explanation by the yogi regarding who God is: he who remains unassailed, unaffected by actions and reactions. He who requires no shelter, he who is the shelter of all, of everything. He is God. Another explanation by the yogi is that the universe is a collection of so many electrons, protons and positrons, and the supreme controller is God. You have only 2 eyes. Those eyes can function only where there are light waves in the external world. Where light waves are lacking, you cannot see, but he has infinite eyes. All those eyes are functioning within, because there is nothing without him. Everything is within him. In order to see your mental picture, do you depend on external eyes? No. For you, there are two worlds, internal and external. But in his case, everything is internal. You are within his mind, and whatever you are seeing, whatever you are doing, whatever you are going to do, everything is being done within his great mind. There is nothing external. Oh, my child, oh, my little child, why did you commit such a sin? You cannot say, no, Father, I didn't commit a sin. Because you are in his mind. He sees internally, without the help of any eyes, because you are his mental creation, you are within his mind. He is omnipresent, he is everywhere. The movement of a grain of sand is as important to him as the movement of an atom bomb, as the movement of a megatron bomb. For him there is nothing unimportant. You cannot be unimportant for him. The Father is always with you, and because of his omnipresence there is one advantage and one disadvantage. What is the advantage? The advantage is the Supreme Father is always with you. You are never alone. You must not be afraid of anybody, because he is always waiting to save you. And the disadvantage is that he is always with you, and therefore it is very difficult for you to do anything unpleasant, anything undesirable. This is the difficulty. The universe is surrounded by him. Whatever you do, your doing is witnessed by him. You cannot think secretly. Maya is that force which creates the illusion of this physical reality. It is the operative principle of God. Now this Maya, it is insurmountable for an ordinary human being, for a non-sadhaka. A person who is not a spiritual aspirant is to serve Maya as a slave. This is the case with all animals, with all brutes, and with all people of an animal temperament. Now, what is intuitional practice? What is yogic practice? Its purpose is just to overcome the influence of Maya. This operative principle, the influence of Maya, is just like a satanic chain, just like a serpentine noose of afflictions and predicaments. One has to free oneself from this serpentine noose, and this is done through yogic sadhana. When the yogi comes in close contact with the Supreme Father, the Lord says, "Oh my child, it is very difficult for a person to overcome the influence of this Maya. Maya is insurmountable, but he or she who has taken shelter in me, who has ensconced himself or herself in me, who has taken shelter on my lap, will surely go beyond the influence of this Maya. Unless and until you have developed implicit faith and sincere love for that Supreme Father, you will not become one with him. You will be bound by this Maya. Now when do people begin to feel that they should love the world? When they free themselves from evil, from egotistic sentiments, but they will say, they say God is gracious, but I am an unfortunate person. I am not realizing his grace. There are many persons who talk like this, but you know, my boys, you know, my daughters, there is no partiality in him. His heavenly shower of grace is for all. He is for every creature, but one feels his grace and another does not. What is the reason? There is a heavenly shower of grace, but suppose that you are holding an umbrella over your head. Will you be drenched by that shower? Oh no, they who want to enjoy this shower of grace must remove this umbrella of ego over their heads, and they will be drenched by the divine shower. So spiritual aspirants, yogis, must give up all their egotistic sentiments, and in the next moment they will be in the proximity of the Supreme Father. One is to get him to come in contact with the Divine Father through jnana, karma, and bhakti. What is jnana? Jnana is spiritual knowledge, not mundane knowledge. Mundane knowledge is distorted knowledge. It is not knowledge at all. Spiritual knowledge is the real knowledge. But what is spiritual knowledge? One must know what one is, what one's goal is. This is the spiritual knowledge. Then comes karma. Karma means action. But if one knows what one is, what one's desideratum is, then one will have to move towards one's goal. one will have to do something practical and move towards one's goal. This movement, this practical approach, this actional approach is called karma. Then, when after karma one comes near to him, one will be united or unified with him. This process of unification is devotion, bhakti. Bhakti yoga can be divided into two broad categories. One is attributional devotion, and the other is non-attributional devotion. In attributional devotion, there are three stages. The first one is the stage of static devotion. In static devotion, the devotee says, "O my Lord, I am your devotee. Mr. Y is my enemy. Please destroy him." In the case of static devotion, the devotee doesn't want to be with the Lord. The devotee wants something bad or harsh done to his or her enemy. That is devotion of the worst type, as it was not the person's longing to become one with the Father. That person never will become united with the Father. And also, the Supreme Father is the Supreme Father of the enemy also, so he may or may not kill that enemy. Static devotion is no devotion. Then comes meditative devotion. In this case, the devotee says to the Lord, "I am your devotee. Please give me money. Please give me name and fame. A boy wants toys from his mother. If the boy starts crying for his mother, the mother must leave her duties and attend to the child. But if the child just wants toys, he will never get the mother." Here also the devotee in the example didn't express the desire to become one with the Father, so he won't attain salvation. He won't become a devotee. Yogi means one who finally comes into unification with the Supreme Self. Also, this person asked for worldly property. Now you know that worldly properties are limited. The number of dollars in the world is very large. But it is not infinite. So the Lord may or may not fulfill such a desire. He has looked after the interests of so many children. He cannot fulfill your unjustified demand. So this meditative devotion is not devotion at all. Now comes the third kind of devotion, of attributional devotion called sentient devotion. In this case, the person says, "I am your devotee, but O Lord, I am an old man. Give me something concrete. I want salvation. And you know I am disgusted with the world. My digestive organs have become disordered. I can't eat anything. Please give me peace. Please give me peace." It is a sentient devotion because here the aspirant, the devotee, does not want anything physical, so it is better than static or meditative devotion. But it is also a very bad type of devotion. It is no devotion, because the person wants salvation from the Supreme Father, but he doesn't want the Supreme Father, so he is not a yogi. A yogi has to unify himself with the Father. A yogi will not demand any toys from the Father. Then there comes non-attributional devotion. In non-attributional devotion, there are two phases. One is called Raganuga Bhakti. The other is called Ragatmika Bhakti. In Raganuga devotion, the devotee says, "O my Lord, I love you because in loving you I get pleasure. I want nothing from you. I want to love you because I get pleasure." It is non-attributional devotion, but it is still not the highest form of devotion. The highest form of devotion is called Ragatmika Bhakti. In Ragatmika, the devotee says, "O Lord, I love you. I want to love you. And why do I want to love you? Because I want my love to give you pleasure. I love you not to get pleasure, but to give you pleasure." This is the highest form of devotion. Embodiment of this type of devotion, Ragatmika devotion, the yogi comes in closest contact with him, with the Supreme Self, and becomes one with him. When the devotee's love is to give pleasure to the Lord and not to enjoy pleasure for himself or herself, the person's mind gets subjectivated. That is, the mind gets metamorphosed into the mind of the Lord. And that's why this Ragatmika devotion is the only devotion. And through this devotion, the yogi gets established in the stance of supreme beatitude. The person and the person's God become one. It is the only goal of human life, to become one with Him. When one comes near the Supreme Father, he or she has to address the Father. "O Father, Give me shelter on your blissful lap, on your graceful lap. To say this, one has to establish a relationship of implicit faith and sincerest love with the Father. This implicit faith blended with spiritual zeal is called devotion. So knowledge and action are to help you in developing devotion, but your unification with the Supreme Self will be established with the help of devotion only. So where there is action and where there is knowledge, but where there is lack of devotion, nothing can be done. So in the life of a spiritual aspirant, in the life of a yogi, nothing can be done if there is want of devotion. So you daughters, you sons, you must remember that you will have to develop devotion, implicit devotion, blended with spiritual zeal. And that devotion will help you. Devotion is the only faculty to help you, to establish you in the supreme beatitude. Now the supreme Purusha, for the blessed, for the virtuous, he is their father. He is their supreme shelter. But for those who are not virtuous, those who are sinners, for them he is not the father. Certainly he is the father. He is the father of the sinners also. Otherwise, where are the sinners to go? You must give shelter to the sinners also. He knows the past of all his daughters and all his sons. Even then he loves them, doesn't he? Suppose the Supreme Father says that he is the father of the virtuous only, not the father of the sinners. Then is he justified in this? Has he got the right to say this? Then the sinners will challenge his authority. They will say, no, Supreme Father, you have no right to say you are not the father of the sinners, because when he is the father of the universe, then do the sinners live out of the scope of the universe? No. Then the sinners may say, oh Father, if you are not the Supreme, if you are not our Father, in that case, please expel us to some place outside the universe. The Supreme Father, the Lord of the entire universe, is the witness of all witnesses. He is the King of all kings. If even sinners ideate on me, accept me as their only object of ideation, say the Lord, they will be freed from all worldly fetters, all worldly bondages. Sinners must attain salvation, must be freed from all sins, all bondages of sin, by the Supreme Father. So for the virtuous and also for sinners, the Supreme Father is the only shelter. The Supreme Father is the only object of ideation. What are sinners to do? They are to forget their past, and they are to move ahead on the path of spirituality, to attain that supreme stance, to come in direct contact with the Supreme Father. You are to serve the universe as the ideal daughters and sons of the Supreme Father. You need not be anxious. You must not have any worries and anxieties about your personal problems. Your problems are to be solved by the Supreme Father. You serve the children of the Supreme Father as the ideal daughters and ideal sons of that Father. 23rd of June 1968, DMC, Manila, Subhashita Sangraha, Part 21. Posted in Bábá in Mahárliká. Parabol Baba ki jai.